Hello there, and thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Kokomlimle on digital address GA0992539. Our top stories is our schools, especially universities, reopen amidst concerns. Spikes in the number of coronavirus cases does not make the situation ideal for reopening. We are live on university campuses as we engage health experts and the SRC on this. Also coming up, are you wearing your face mask? Well, the Greater Accra Regional Security Council is preparing a strategy to enforce President Akufo-Addo's directive for mandatory wearing of face masks. Well, JoyNews checks are revealing some people have ditched the wearing of masks. Are you wearing yours? Let's have a talk. Later on the show, we want to hear from you, especially if you live in Sunai East and you have a vote for the NPP primaries. My special guest today is Member of Parliament aspirant for the NPP, Alfred Twayeboah, as we engage him on the battleground. We want to hear from you as we ready for the primaries later this weekend. Those are top stories this hour. We're streaming live on YouTube. We're free to air on your digital television, and also you can catch us on our social media platforms. This is The Pulse, and I'm Gifty Andropia. Please be my guest. Welcome to the show. The Greater Accra Regional Security Council is preparing a strategy to enforce President Akufo-Addo's directive for mandatory wearing of face masks. As checked by JoyNews reveals, some people have ditched the wearing of the masks. Others fail to wear it properly as mandated by health officials. Now, the few observing the face mask protocols are also worried and they are demanding city authorities ramp up enforcement. Listen.
And if it's on, when I started doing here the A1 properly, that's why I put it down for me to shout for them to hear A1.
And when I'm trying to call a customer on the roadside, if the mask is on, the customer cannot hear him, so I push it down to call the customer. After that, then I put it on.
Because sometimes when I wear it, I don't feel comfortable. Yeah, like when I'm wearing it, as if I'm sweating, like I feel a sort of sweat on me, yes. I find it difficult in breathing so much because sometimes it tightens your nose. So at least 30 minutes time, you have to remove it so that you can breathe a little. Yeah.
If you have fever now, they'll say you have corona. No, mistakenly you first see they say it's corona. People are dying of hunger and they'll say it's corona. Let's just be realistic. Let's say the truth. Let me tell you the truth. I don't believe there's COVID-19 here. Because actually, most patients they show us that the numbers they keep telling us that we have COVID-19 both in Nigeria and here in Ghana. We could, none of my friends or my family could ever testify that, oh, this one person is a friend that has COVID-19. I've not seen being real.
So you see it before you believe?
Yes. We Africans will believe in seeing before we believe. Those there in Europe, we saw them, we saw their patients. Why can't Africa just show us a single patient of us?
When the case started, everybody was following the steps and we're all putting on the necessary steps. Let's say nose masks and other things. But it got to a time, the general public, all of us, we lose so relaxed. And I think the law enforcers, they have to up the game because looking at things, the figures are going up.
So those are mixed reactions, those wearing it, those not wearing it, those who don't even believe in the existence of coronavirus. In his address last night, President Akufo-Addo warned that persons who fail to wear face masks in public would be in violation of the new executive instrument and face possible prosecution.
It is important for me to remind residents of the Greater Accra and Ashanti regions, where the great majority of cases have been recorded, and in the western and central regions, where we're seeing an increase in infection cases, to continue to adhere strictly to the social distancing and enhanced hygiene protocols announced. With the doctors and scientists telling us that the virus is transmitted from human contact through talking, singing, coughing, and sneezing, which results in sending droplets of the virus from one person to another. Residents of these 4 regions, and indeed all Ghanaians, must remember that the wearing of masks is now mandatory. Leaving our homes without a face mask or face covering on is an offense. The police have been instructed to enforce this directive, which is the subject of an executive instrument. Let me repeat, our survival is in our own hands. If we are lax and inattentive, we will continue to have serious challenges with the virus. If we are mindful and self-disciplined, we have it in us to defeat this pandemic and help return our lives to normalcy. I appeal to each and every one of you for your help in this regard.
So that's President Akufo-Addo last night in his address. We'll be having 2 different conversations on this particular issue, one from a medical perspective and the other from a legal perspective as far as the enforcement of the wearing of face mask directive is concerned. First though, let's take a look at the case count, just to refresh your memory. So the total confirmed cases is 11,964. It doesn't mean that 11,964 people are living currently with it. You have to take away the recoveries and deaths. And so if you do that, 7,652 is the number of confirmed cases. 4,258 have recovered, but 54 people have died. 54 people have died. All right, so let's have this conversation. I'm connecting with Dr. Benedict Kalis-Tego. He is an epidemiologist and senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Medical School. Doc, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much for having me, and good afternoon to your viewers.
Very well. I just want to get what your thoughts are looking at the numbers so far.
Well, as we can all see, the numbers are increasing, and what it tells us is that the virus is with us in our communities. It is being transmitted within the communities, and therefore I say that the frontline staff are no longer the health workers, but we, the citizens of Ghana. Each and every one of us has a responsibility to protect himself or herself by adhering to the numerous measures that have been clearly outlined. So those would be my initial comments.
There's community transmission. I mean, the community transmission has been with us for some time. At the point where it wasn't was when we feared, when the borders were even still open. Now we know it's come to stay. When you say everybody ought to take steps to consider themselves as frontline workers, exactly what can we do, especially when this is a virus you can't see with your eyes?
That's very true. You can't see the virus with your eyes, but there are recognized, proven methods that have so far been working. And that includes the hand hygiene, washing under running water and soap, using the hand sanitizers when water is not readily available, and the wearing of the face mask. Now, the reason why the face mask is so important is because when you look at the data we have in Ghana, over 90% are asymptomatic. In other words, they are not exhibiting any of the signs or symptoms we know, no fever, no cough, nothing. So they are just moving through the community. And it has been proven scientifically that people who are not symptomatic still have the capacity to transmit the virus. So if each and every person is putting on their mask, then what is going to happen is that whatever virus I may be carrying, I limit it to myself. Whatever virus the other person is carrying is limited to that other person. And since the virus does not have legs on its own, but it moves as people interact, if we are protecting each other this way, then we reduce greatly the probability of this virus moving from one person to the other. Already, we have indications that our health facilities are beginning to get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And therefore, if we want to win this war, it is good to have policy directives, but it is more important enforcing these policy directives.
So enforcement is one of the biggest problems that this country has. And you don't really need an angel to tell you that. We've seen that run through all of the problems, the major problems that we have. Enforcement. But I'll come to enforcement. I want you to take a look at how you reconcile the numbers with the push for normalcy. I mean, before the restrictions were eased, people wanted to go to church. Some people said they wanted to go back to school. Now that has been granted to some extent. How do you reconcile the numbers, the spike in numbers, vis-a-vis a request, or if you like, a push by some to get back to normalcy by going to school and going to church?
Right. Much as I agree that we should try to get back to as normal as possible, I was personally disappointed in how this whole thing was carried out. When there are restrictions and you ease the restrictions, the general impression it creates is that things are getting better or things are okay. I would have expected an intensified, commensurate public education with the easing of the restrictions. I didn't see that happening. Maybe others felt it. But in my own community, I haven't had any education whatsoever. What I would have expected was an intensified education to let people know that these sanctions are being eased, not because we are out of the woods, but because life must go on.
Right.
And I would have expected to see the information services van going through our communities, announcing in the local languages that every Ghanaian can understand. You know what? When it is time for campaigning for elections, we are able to go to every nook and cranny of this country. It doesn't matter how remote they are. We get there with the information that so and so wants to be voted for. Why can't we adopt the same measures in spreading the news about coronavirus? I don't think we have done enough by way of public education. We haven't exhausted all the avenues available to us. I don't know how much our traditional leaders have been involved in this, because we have traditional leaders who have so much power, they have so much authority. When they speak, their subjects listen. Have we engaged them in this? I don't know to what extent. But I don't think from where I sit, there has been enough education. The other aspect of enforcement is not just getting the security agencies to chase people around. I think leadership should be by example. And I have been personally appalled at some of our leaders coming on national TV, sitting in parliament, having their mask on their chin. That doesn't set a good example. Personally, I've had my own frustrations trying to educate the populace. And then they will give you a reference to a certain leader who is not doing it right and yet insisting that people do it right. Leadership, first and foremost, must be by example before you can expect others to follow. And in that regard, I don't think we have done very well.
I'm happy that you touched on enforcement, so we don't even have to go back to it. But the Regional Security Council, we understand, is working on some sort of strategy to help with that enforcement. You think that it should come from leadership, but when it comes to getting the job done on the ground, not just on working on the psyche of people, you need people to do that. Isn't that a way to go as well?
Well, it works both ways. You see, I gave that example because personally I have had that frustration. You try to talk to people who are either not wearing their mask or not wearing it right, and then they point to leaders who are doing as they are doing and use that as a justification. And so it should start from the top. But having said that, it should also be enforced and ensure that every Ghanaian would wear their mask as long as they are in public space.
In terms of case management, what would be your recommendation? You've indicated that now it's up to all of us. Now it's become our job, not just the frontline health workers. But we know that we don't have enough health facilities in this country. We know that even the normal healthcare delivery, we've had major concerns with it. Throw coronavirus in there and you have a major situation. What do you recommend in terms of case management?
And that is why this health education is so important. Because you see, when the cases rise, we don't have the capacity to manage them. We don't have enough capacity to manage severe cases. We don't have enough ventilators to go around everybody. So our best bet is to educate the people. This disease has been with us for almost 6 months and 3 months in Ghana to be precise. And yet there are people who still don't believe it exists. That's an indictment on our public education. If after 3 months, people have still not heard, then it's an indictment on us, and we need to up our game. I think we have relaxed. We started very well. We started very well, but I think now we have relaxed, and if we are not careful, we may lose this fight.
I hope against all hopes that we don't lose this fight. But I have been under the impression.
Just a point.
Please go ahead.
We have history to guide us. If we look back at what happened during the Spanish flu in the early 19th, 1918 to 1920, it was a similar trend. It was a virus that was novel at the time. It was a virus that had no cure. It was a virus for which there was no known vaccine. Now, all the measures we are implementing today were implemented then. That pandemic occurred in 3 or 4 waves, depending on which literature you are reading. And the second wave was the most disastrous. And that occurred after the sanctions or the impositions on restrictions were lifted. People went back to business as usual because they were now free to do all the things they were not able to do during the restrictions. And it's beginning to happen. You just need to drive through town. 2 days ago, I was at the spare parts lane in Abosukain, and it was just terrible. Drive through Jamestown, drive through Kolegono, drive through any parts of Accra. And it's happening because people have gone back and they think it's business as usual because the restrictions have been eased. And it didn't go with a commensurate education to let people know that we are not out of the woods yet.
So restrictions have been eased without the commensurate education. I have been under the impression that perhaps if we start highlighting the deaths, we start highlighting, for example, put a human face to the figures, that will help solve the problem. Is that an opinion you share?
For people to really appreciate what is happening, yes, it will be good to put a face to the numbers. When you say 54 people have lost their lives, it looks like just numbers.
Yeah.
But if we can put faces to these numbers, if people who have tested positive would be willing to share their experiences, as some people have already done, it's patient confidentiality. So every person has a right to decide whether they want the world to know their status or not. We can't force anybody. But if people who have had exposure would be willing to talk about it, I know the media is doing its part by visiting some of our treatment centers and letting people know. But then that alone is not enough. We need to let people understand the severity. If it's possible to show some of these graphics without revealing the identities of the people involved, then I think it will work on the psyche of people, and people will begin to appreciate the reality of this. Sometimes when we throw around these figures, they are all statistics. If it happens to you, it's no longer a statistics, it's 100%. And that is something we shouldn't lose sight of.
My final question, you are a lecturer at the university. Today, the universities have been open for people to go back to school. The concern has been that, look, we're trying to get back to a semblance of normalcy, but we're really not there yet. People have said, this has come to stay. Whether you like it or not, it won't go away. So you better get on with your life or waste your time losing whatever little gains you have made over the years. Where do you stand on this?
Well, like I started saying, I agree life must go on, but we need to tread cautiously. We also need to learn from the examples and mistakes of other people. There are countries that opened up their schools, opened up churches, and there were repercussions. Yes, the government has given a directive, and as a school, we are preparing to receive our students. But I'm part of the committee that was tasked by the dean of the medical school to put together guidelines to ensure that there is minimum transmission amongst our students. So we are taking all the necessary precautions, but let's bear in mind that these measures do not eliminate completely the risk. They minimize them. And therefore, we all need to be extra vigilant. The responsibility lies with each and every one of us. If you can appreciate the fact that associating with somebody who is not in a mask puts you at risk, and so avoid them. If we all do that, very soon everybody will be masked. And there are those who would give excuses about the mask. I don't have a mask, I don't have a fitting one. You see, we can always improvise. If you don't have a mask, half a loaf is better than no bread at all. You can even start with your handkerchief. It may not be as effective as a surgical mask or an N95, but it's better than nothing.
Okay.
And then we should always make it a habit to wash our hands with soap under running water, because as we move along, the virus settles on surfaces and we may pick things inadvertently without realizing. So those are some of the things. And as much as possible, let's maintain the physical distancing.
Right.
When you drive through town, it doesn't give you that impression. Sometimes it really scares me.
I can certainly relate to that. Well, that's it. If you have any final words, Doc, I'd love for you to add to this, especially for our case management, our facilities, etc. I believe that that's where perhaps the focus will be pretty soon.
Well, in the short term, there is very little we can do about expanding our facilities. I know there are plans to put up more facilities, but in the short term, our best bet would be to observe all the safety precautions that we are being encouraged to. And let us remember that you are not doing the government a favor, you are not doing the health workers a favor by observing these rules. You are protecting yourself, you are protecting your family. And so I would urge each and every one to abide by these rules, especially the face masking. And I would say not only in the regions that are reporting the high cases, but throughout the entire country. And if we do that religiously, I believe with time, we will win the war against this virus.
Doc, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I've been talking to Dr. Benedict Kalis-Tego. He's an epidemiologist, University of Ghana Medical School, helping us with his thoughts there. I hope wherever you are and whatever situation you're in, you're at least wearing your face mask. So President Akufo-Addo has been defending his government's handling of the pandemic during his last address last night as well. Let me refresh your memory with that bit.
Operating with half the class size, final year students will begin a 6-week period of learning to finish their respective programs. Subsequently, for a period of 4 weeks, they will sit for their exit examinations. It must be put on record that some final year students will not be returning to school, as some of them, through virtual means, have already sat their exit examinations. Prior to their return to school, government, through the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service, has ensured that all tertiary institutions, public and private, have been disinfected. Universities, with their own hospitals and clinics, have been equipped with the necessary personal protective equipment and have isolation centers to deal with any positive cases. All other institutions, without their own clinics and hospitals, have been mapped to health facilities. There will be no mass gatherings and no sporting activities. Religious activities under the new protocols will be permitted. Social distancing and the wearing of face masks must become the norm on campus. To aid in this effort, a total of 600,000 face masks has been distributed to the tertiary institutions. This is to enable every student, teaching and non-teaching staff, to have 3 reusable face masks. In addition to this, 1,700 Veronica buckets, 200,000 liters of hand sanitizers, 3,400 liters of liquid soap, and 900 thermometer guns have been distributed, with the transportation and delivery of these items being overseen by the Special Logistics Team of the Government Committee, chaired by the sagacious, experienced politician, the Senior Minister, Honorable Yao Safo-Mafo, that is supervising the reopening of the schools. I met with the Vice Chancellors of the universities, both public and private, last Tuesday, who pledged that they would cooperate to ensure that this exercise is effectively undertaken. And I thank them very much for their cooperation.
President Akufo-Addo there, unfortunately we didn't bring you the part where he is defending how his government has managed the situation, but he's talking about the reopening of schools. I'll be having a conversation about what it means legally when he says mandatory wearing of face masks. I'll be joined by Andrew Doji Adugu. He's a state attorney. When we return from this break, I want to hear from you. Do send us your thoughts on our WhatsApp platform. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Like I said, I'll be joined in this discussion by Andrew Doji Adugu. He's a state attorney at the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice. He's in the Volta region. Sir, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for having me, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Amazing. So when the president says mandatory wearing of face masks, we've heard that before. On the face of it, it looks like you have to wear it. But what does it legally mean?
Well, if the president says wearing a face mask is mandatory, then there's no legal backing. However, I heard the president expressly say that if you do not wear the face mask, it is an offense, and it is a subject of an executive instrument to be issued. So now, wearing a face mask is no more something that you can just go without, then they would just use administrative efforts to compel you. Now, it is an offense. It is a criminal offense, and it's going to be a subject of writing in an executive instrument. And I wish to draw our attention that a mere declaration does not make something an offense. Under Article 1911 of our 1992 Constitution, it says no person shall be convicted of a criminal offense unless the offense is defined and the penalty for it is prescribed in a written law. So for this to become an offense, it must be put in law, and in this case is the executive instrument, because the Imposition of Restriction Act gives the president the power to impose certain restrictions. And if you do not comply with the said restrictions, there are sanctions to be applied. And in this particular case, and I believe very soon the EI will be out. The EI will spell out exactly what, if you do not do, will constitute an offense. And in this case, the president said wearing of nose mask or nose covering or face covering. So not only limited to nose mask, but something that can cover your nose or cover your face to prevent you from infecting others or from others infecting you. So I see that pretty soon we are going to have an EI spelling out specifically what the offense is and probably the penalty that you face if you fail to wear a face mask.
So it's more like something that's yet to be issued, an EI that's yet to be issued, even though the president mentions it. Between the time that he mentions it and the time that the EI is actually issued, does it still make it an offense not to wear one? Can people just go around and not? Can someone be arrested and charged for not wearing masks within the period that the EI is not ready?
So, just as I mentioned, nothing is a crime unless it is stated in the law.
Okay.
So, a declaration by the president when there has not been in a written law and gazetted, my understanding of the law is that that will not constitute an offense, because if you are being prosecuted for an offense, at the time you are doing the act or at the time you omit to do a particular act, that should constitute an offense. I cannot be punished for any offense that at the time you were committing the offense, it was not stated in any written law or it had not become an offense. So my understanding, and this has been what we have been seeing so far, usually the executive instrument would almost
Okay, well, it looks like the line is freezing on us, but we're still, trying to get that through. You do know that some of these things happen. I'm talking to Andrew Doji Adugu. He's a state attorney at the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice in the Volta region, to be specific. And essentially, the point he makes is that it is a criminal offense if it is detailed in an executive instrument and you do not obey it. So wearing of masks is an offense. That is, and he's explaining this to us further, if the EI backing it comes out, and then it becomes an offense. So what I'm trying to get him to break down, because I don't know, as of now, there is no EI backing this, at least to the best of my knowledge. So what I'm trying to get through is whether or not between now and when the EI is ready, I can't be arrested, prosecuted for not wearing a face mask. And that's what he's been trying to break down. Are you still there, Andrew? Okay. Well, I'm not, we don't have him yet. We'll come back to this particular discussion and I'll get to read some of your messages that you're sending in. But we're back. Okay, I do have him back. Andrew, you were explaining to me how it works within the time that the EI, the executive instrument, is not ready when a declaration has been made. How it works. Please go ahead.
So my point is that the constitution, the law must be a written law, and so on to an extent that there's an executive instrument. In my mind and in my understanding, per the requirement of the law, you have to wait to see the executive instrument, because the executive instrument will spell out what the offense is and the punishment that is to be given. So our advice that to follow the procedure, we must stick to the dictates of the Constitution, which we are all guided by.
Interesting. And so at the moment, what has to fast track this and make it a criminal offense to not wear face masks is that EI, the executive instrument that will spell out, like you're saying, the details. Am I getting you right? Take a look at the schools and what's happening there. Today, final year students have started returning to the country's universities following the partial lifting of the restrictions imposed to halt the spread of COVID-19. But many of those students returned on campus without the face masks, one of the major requirements for the reopening. Listen to President Akufo-Addo again, laying out the protocols for the schools reopening.
Operating with half the class size, final year students will begin a 6-week period of learning to finish their respective programs. Subsequently, for a period of 4 weeks, they will sit for their exit examinations. It must be put on record that some final year students will not be returning to school, as some of them, through virtual means, have already sat their exit examinations. Prior to their return to school, government, through the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service, has ensured that all tertiary institutions, public and private, have been disinfected. Universities, with their own hospitals and clinics, have been equipped with the necessary personal protective equipment and have isolation centers to deal with any positive cases. All other institutions, without their own clinics and hospitals, have been mapped to health facilities. There will be no mass gatherings and no sporting activities. Religious activities under the new protocols will be permitted. Social distancing and the wearing of face masks must become the norm on campus. To aid in this effort, a total of 600,000 face masks has been distributed to the tertiary institutions. This is to enable every student, teaching and non-teaching staff, to have 3 reusable face masks. In addition to this, 1,700 Veronica buckets, 200,000 liters of hand sanitizers, 3,400 liters of liquid soap, and 900 thermometer guns have been distributed.
So where are the masks? Because our reporters say not all these are being observed, at least not on the University of Ghana campus.
Here at the Jones Courty building, one of the largest lecture complexes on campus. Still, it appears that many of the final year students are yet to report to campus. It might be the rains, it might be how comfortable they are so far with their online duties. But the very few that we spoke to have different reasons for showing up entirely. Here with me are Susie and Ruby, final year accounting students. They talk to us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so how are preparation going so far?
Okay, we started the exam some days back and about 4 days ago, and it's going well.
And it appears still there are very less of you final year students, especially on campus. It was for you that this directive was given yesterday. What's up with that? What's the main problem?
Okay, we can say that due to the risk involved in the COVID-19, you can't tell who is having it or who is not. Most students prefer to be at home and write instead of coming to campus.
So why did you decide to be here?
Okay, I personally came here because I want a good internet and I have less hours to finish my exams, which I can't take the risk of being at home.
But let's come to you, Susie. The most important question on people's minds at the moment, do you feel safe with your studies here?
No, we don't
feel safe.
We don't really feel safe because we don't know the status of each and everybody we would encounter here. But then we will try as much as possible to put the safety protocols into place so that at least we might feel a little bit safe, but we are not really safe.
So if authorities are watching you now, what would be your call to them, the university management?
Okay, I would tell them that they should give us the protective equipment as much as we need. You know, some people don't even have masks. Our masks are in our bags. Okay?
Why?
Because when we started, we've been distanced from other people. You get it? We've practiced social distance, and the mask, when you should wear it, there's a lot of heat, and then you can't really breathe. So
don't you prefer that to?
So when you reach somewhere, you have to at least release it so that you would inhale some of the fresh air. You get, so when you get to crowded places, you would put them on. But then
here's the case where we've established that the air we are having in the country as of now is not so fresh due to COVID-19. So why take that risk in the first place?
No, I didn't say the air. I'm saying that we don't know the status of everybody, so we can't be safe here. As I'm going to encounter with somebody, I don't know where that person was from. I don't know the substance or the surfaces that person has touched. So I can't be certain that this person doesn't have COVID-19.
So thank you so much. Those were the voices of Susie and Ruby, final year accounting students. As I told you earlier, they are preparing for the exam. We would leave them for quite a while. But as I mentioned, not only final year students are on campus as at the moment. As you can see behind me, there are some gentlemen also studying. They tell me they are not final year students. In fact, they are not even main campus students. We'll ask them also of how far with their duties here. Good morning, gentlemen. Okay, so you tell me you're not final year student?
No, please.
Okay, so tell us about yourself then.
I'm second year student. Okay. I come here because of I live not far away from here, so I come here. I have an exams to write, online exams to take, so I came here to do my exams.
But I can see you don't have any nose mask on or anything. Let's talk about safety.
Yeah, I have no nose mask on.
So we can see no authorities come around to check whether nose mask enforcement and others are done?
No, please.
Okay. That's also from their side. Moving to our left, the facility here, you can see is the Tingy's snack bar, and they offer for students that may be tired or hungry from the day's work. They have snacks available that they can enjoy. We'll also ask them and check how they are preparing as final year students have been allowed back for their studies, the partial reopening. Hello, sir. Hello. Okay, so you are the manager of Tingy's snack bar. If you mind telling us your name?
Oh, my name is Ali.
Okay. And now final year students are going to return to campus, or they've been allowed to return now for the brief period. How are your preparations here in ensuring safety?
Well, we are well prepared. All our drinks and food are intact. It's just that the students are not in, so we are just hoping that they will come in and everything will go on well.
But say I just entered, I'm here to buy food. What are the protocols I have to go through?
Oh, well, at the entrance we have where you wash your hands.
Do you mind showing us around?
Oh.
Yeah. So he's taking me to the door where they begin the process. Usually for most students, as I said, you come here after a hard day's work, you come here after studying for several hours or before lectures to grab something small for your day. So most often than not, these things are not regularly enforced. But today, due to COVID-19, these are systems that we face. So if you mind taking us through.
Well, when you come, you have to wash your hands with the soap under the running water. You come inside, you have tissue inside. You use it to clean your hands before you do anything you want to do. But before you come in, we are expecting you to have your nose mask.
So what happens if I don't have it on?
Well, it's another problem. But maybe we will advise you that next time when you are coming, you have to have your nose mask before you can come inside.
So there is no enforcement once again. You advise them?
Yes, please.
Okay, but by that time you may have already contracted. If I have COVID-19, I might have spread it all over the snack bar then.
No, but it's not that maybe when you come inside you are going to touch something, but when you come we are observing the social distance protocol. So when you come, you talk, but maybe when you even have the disease, I wouldn't contract the disease because there's some distance between the two of us.
Okay, thank you. So Mama V, that is basically how here at the Jones Quarter building, one of the largest lecture facility complexes on campus here, they are going about duties.
PSC Nanaya Osafo talking to Mama V Usowaji earlier this morning. It gives you an idea how it looked like today at the University of Ghana campus. Let me take you to the KNUST, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, from where Erastus Asari Donko has been monitoring the situation.
It's a reopening day here at KNUST. Just behind me is the Department of Pharmacy, and inside the lectures are going on. On one of the floors, specifically lecture room 2, they are having a lecture on HIV, and we can count about 30 of the students in there, and the way they are spaced is something that is so beautiful. They have made sure that wherever you are seated, you will be able to catch a glimpse or listen to the lecture whilst it's going on. And so screens have been placed in between for students to be able to, wherever they sit, be able to catch the lecture. And it's so spaced in such a manner that just like doing exams, so one is seated just a space ahead of you and the other is seated a space ahead of you. Before they entered the lecture room, they were made to wash their hands, and some of the lecturers are in there ensuring that students go through the hand washing protocol. When you go inside, they have hand rubs in there as well. And students are required mandatorily to wear their mask before they enter the lecture rooms. Let me say that out of 13,000 final year students, they are just allowing 1,500 students to come on campus. And these are mainly those who are offering human-centered programs like medicine, veterinary medicine, optometry, pharmacy, and the rest. So some of them are being camped at the SRC hostel, which is just about a mile from here. And the others are also using the doctor's hostel at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital. And so currently, that is the arrangement here at KNUST.
All right, so Erastus, you mentioned there are 13,000 final year students, but we only have 1,005. What happens to the rest?
I'm being told by the university management that all those are supposed to go by the virtual learning program that is being done by the university. And they say that so far students are comfortable with that arrangement, and so they want them to remain and complete school on that virtual platform. But only 1,500 will be allowed in. And even with that, they are asking level 600 medical students to come in. They are in here. They are going to do 3 weeks, and then the other batch will join them and do the another 6 weeks as well. And that is how they have been spaced.
Okay, finally, Erastus, why are they in the academic calendar? Because around this time, a lot of schools are writing exams. Is that what is also happening at KNUST?
There's a student here who is seated under the trees, and I asked her, she said she's going to write a paper, and so she's studying. And so some of them are just going through the going through revision exercises and revision lectures as they have it. I'm told that some of them did not have the opportunity of going through the virtual learning, and so they have been given opportunity to go through lectures just like I saw a short while ago, to be able to go through what they have not covered and write the exams. We are not told yet when specifically final exams are supposed to be held. Perhaps when we meet the management, they will be able to tell us. But everything is going on. Lectures have started this morning. As you can see, some sitting under the streets and trying to catch a last-minute glimpse of the books before they go for lectures.
Erastus, don't go there with the situation in Kumasi, Kwame University of Science and Technology. Let me read to you some of your messages. This one says, left to me, we should have opened all the schools because the main source of the spread of the virus is in the market. If we can't totally close all markets, then we are sure of arresting the virus. Schools, churches, and other places can be controlled better than the market. He says, for the area of mandatory wearing of face masks, I think it is in the right direction. Emmanuel Apam from Zebula. Emmanuel, thanks for sending in your message as well. This message says, I am really sad how people here in Ada and Tong areas disregard and disrespect the government's order in respect of COVID-19. Sadly enough, the district authorities look on sheepishly, he says, while citizens do their own thing. Sadly, funerals are being held here freely with heavy crowds. It saddens my heart greatly. James, Ada is James. What you can do is to go to the police station and make a report. I'm sure that the officers there will take some action. Hopefully, they will take some action there. All right. This message says, the President of the Republic, the President of the Republic has decreed, and it behoves on the citizens to heed. It doesn't have to take any order backed by an executive instrument to compel a citizen to take a simple precautionary measure such as wearing of face masks. From Yakubu Ibn Chambers, Bogatanga. The President of the Republic, okay, so you sent that twice. Yeah, I read it. I know that's the whole idea, to get it to be read. Good afternoon. This message says, I think government is doing well so far, except that the misinterpretation and misinformation of Ghanaians, all in the name of spreading calm and not fear, is drawing us back in terms of this fight. I think they hide much information just because they don't want to scare people. But it is good to scare people so that they do the right thing to stay safe. When we hear the false hope that things are better, we relax. That is the nature of Ghanaians. And lots of people will agree with you. You don't add your name. Let me see. You don't add your name to this. But that is a very good way of putting it. People do agree that you need to instill some fear in people. Okay, so let me take some final two. Michael is sending this from Dansuma. He says, for me, they should close all the schools because the virus keeps spreading. And finally, this one says, we want an update on University of Education Winneba about the reopening of schools. And you have some nice words to say about us and the show today. Thank you very much for your message. Let's take a very quick break. When I return, we'll try and get the public health perspective of going back to school, even if it's half capacity. Do stay with us. Welcome back to the show. Now, the New Patriotic Party has suspended 7 of its members for invoking cases on party executive over the disqualification of their parliamentary aspirants at Jabin in the Ashanti region. The fate of 14 others who also behaved in a similar manner at Asokwa, Offenso and Chimamponia will be determined later this week by the party. Some of the members who were not happy with the party's decision to disqualify their candidates invoked those cases. So Love FM's Rasto Sasari Donko has been speaking with the regional party secretary Sampine and has filed this report.
The NPP's parliamentary primaries set for the 20th of this month has attracted many interest. Out of the 121 candidates who declared intentions to contest Ashanti region's 44 constituencies, 10 failed to make it past the vetting stage and 15 sitting MPs are to run unopposed. Some party members saw the disqualifications as deliberate attempts to disqualify certain candidates for sitting MPs to have a field day. There were demonstrations and, in some cases, invocation of curses at Jabin, Offenso and Asokwa. Regional Secretary of the party, Sampine, tells Love News 7 people have been suspended from the party and others are to follow.
Per the Article 3 of our Constitution, one key thing is that when the party takes a decision, it's incumbent upon party members to accept those decisions, adhere to the decisions, and propagate it positively. If you go contrary to that, it's a misconduct. Again, the act of invoking the gods, which is alien to our party, constitutes misconduct because as another duty of the member is that you don't do actions. Your acts or your actions or inaction shouldn't tarnish the image of the party. There's a fact that in Ashanti region, we have about 3-4 constituencies: Offenso, Jabin, Asokwa, and at Chimamponia, having people who were contrary to parties' decisions, and therefore we have 7 people suspended in Jabin, and we have about 7 of them from Offenso who are yet to be suspended because we need to go through certain process, and about 3 people from Asokwa, and about 4 people from Chimamponia that we are going to deal with. But those that have received letters now are 7 people from a Jabin constituency, and we're expecting to also deal with that. That's from the same constituency and from other constituencies.
He says an arbitration committee is in place to quell any rising tension within the party.
As a political entity, we need to build bridges. And therefore, in Ashanti region, we have our Reconciliation and Arbitration Committee, which has membership, which includes Dr. Kwame Adokufo, Mr. Honorable S.K. Boafo, Mami Dokuya, Yamankwa, the former regional chairman of the party. And they are going to deal with these matters where we have instances of disgruntled elements, instances of people who feel hurt and all that. They are going to deal with these matters. We are not going to sit down and look on as a political party.
Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaridonko, Kumasi.
Erastus Asaridonko filed that report. And I've also told you that before we get onto the NPP primaries, we'll be profiling some of the people who are contesting in very interesting constituencies. Today, on the battleground, we focus on Sunyani East, where Kwesi Amaya-Tweme is the current member of parliament. He was elected on the ticket of the New Patriotic Party, of course, winning a majority of 14,935 votes to become the MP. He succeeded former Senior Minister Joseph Henry Mensah, who had also represented the constituency in the Fourth Republic Parliament on the ticket of the same party, 1996 to 2004. Kwesi Amaya-Tweme has now been strongly contested by Alfred Tuayeboa, who is president of the Ghana Bar Association, Bono East and Ahafo branches. He's my guest today, and he's joining me via Zoom. Sir, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
So unfortunately, we couldn't have this conversation as yet planned Friday, but it's good to have you. So tell us a bit more about you. Who are you?
Thank you very much. I'm a young man of no more than 44 years. I've been a lawyer for the last 19 years. I've been a member of the party since 1995. I served my party during my days in Legon. After the law school to when I came back to practice in Sunyani as a lawyer, I've been handling case for the party all this while. In 2010, I was the deputy regional secretary up to 2014. Then in 2018, when we were having the regional elections, I was the one who stood in for the party to conduct the Bruno regional executive elections at the time that some people had taken the matter to the law courts. So in terms of my work as a party member, it started in 1996.
For the work that you have done for the party, what is it that you bring on board that you think the current member of parliament has not given the constituency?
Yes, Sunyani is the eye of MPP in the Bono region, because that's the regional capital. As you rightly stated in your intro, the late J.H. Mensah was the member of parliament for Sunyani East for 12 years. The current MP, who happens to be a senior colleague at the bar, also has been in power for 12 years. I think the constituency, as we have it now, is somehow divided. And in order to get a united front, I think I'm the right person to bring on board every individual. The constituency has a lot of youth electorates. Considering my age, the kind of work that I've done in the constituency all these years, I think I fit the bill this time round.
So essentially, you think that you appeal to the current voter, the current voters better than the current member of parliament?
Exactly, my sister.
Just because you are younger than him?
That's not the case. For the last 19 years, I've done a lot of work for the party in the region and in the constituency. And the people in the constituency know that I'm one of the people that is able to get the blue color of the party, the blood is within me. In terms of my grassroots work, they know it. And having done a lot of work in Sunyani and with my contribution to the party in the constituency and in the region, I think I resonate more with them than any other person.
Okay. Let me focus on the issues you want to tackle. What are what key issues have you identified in this constituency that you intend to tackle for the people or for the lives of the people to be better than it is at the moment?
Yes, Sunyani is a constituency with not less than 80 to 100,000 electorates. Over 70% of them are youth. They are below the age of 35. A lot of them look up to some of us. We've been doing a lot for the youth in terms of mentoring them, advising them to do various vocations, also trying to offer help when need be. So in terms of the youth, I think my coming in will be like getting their own to be part of the system, and also my ability to also fight for others brought to bear. When it comes to women empowerment, which is something that I think we should be looking at, if you come to the central business area in Sunyani, you can find close to 70% of the people there who are traders being women. And I think that if we want to move our constituency forward, there's a need to empower our women. How do we empower them? Is it possible that we can have a means letting them have what kind of standard they may have in their business? For example, financing. How are they financed when it comes to their businesses? How are they being mentored, those who go to school? I think that coming on board and all the people that I have spoken to, I know that those people who are the marketplaces will get the requisite help when need be. When you come to Sunyani, in terms of development, I concede that government upon governments have done their part. But if you go to the rural Sunyani, which is not the Sunyani city proper, it surprises you to know that sometimes if you go to some areas 10 minutes away from Sunyani, they do not have access to internet facility, even mobile telecommunication network. They don't have it. 5 to 10 minutes drive from Sunyani, the regional capital. So the rural constituency within the Sunyani constituency is an area that I think I should be tackling. We must bring them on board. Because you can't be in Sunyani be thinking that everything is Sunyani. We must be thinking about those outside Sunyani. Most of them are farmers. And these farmers, the only thing that they need has to do with agrochemicals, fertilizers, and the rest that they may need in beefing up their farming activities. Coming on board, I think I'll not leave them behind, because they are the people who are feeding the people of Sunyani, for that matter, the people of Ghana. So have these measures that I think, if I'm brought on board, definitely others also benefit.
Okay, so if I got you right, you're looking at mentorship, especially for the youth, women empowerment, especially for traders, and providing them with some kind of financial support, mentoring of young people, especially those in school, and development generally. I believe you mean, I'm sure, infrastructure development in rural parts of Sunyani, and you talk about internet coverage, and then you talk about the farmers. I'm particularly interested in what you want to do about the farmers. You say that they need, fertilizers, etc. But people have argued that there is a lot of money to be made in this industry, and we leave it to people, we leave it to poor farmers who end up being poorer because they produce and it gets rotten. Do you have a plan for mechanization of these farmers who live in this rural part of Sunyani, for example?
Exactly. I've gone around. I've been with people. I've spoken to people. A lot of them, if we were to put them together in clusters and then provide them requisite help, definitely you get that kind of mechanized way of farming. Because now they are farming in bits and in pieces, subsistence level of farming, each of them is on its own. But my plan is to bring them together, form some form of loose partnership, where because they have the numbers, we can access facilities so they can engage in to some extent, large-scale farming, the mechanized type.
Another key issue you raised is unity. You say there's no unity in the constituency in Sunyani East, but you deciding to contest against a sitting MP, contest against someone who has held this fort for, like you said, 12 years. How is that a sign of reconciliation?
Yes, since I started my campaign, I told the people of Sunyani that I was not going to campaign based on insults. No, I told them we're going to campaign based on issues and what I, as an aspirant, will be able to do for the people of Sunyani. So everybody will bear me out, those in Sunyani, that this is the first time that we've had campaigning in Sunyani where we haven't had people trading insults. Because I think and I know that even if I win this primaries come Saturday, I will need the support of my senior brother, who's also the MP. Likewise, if he even wins, he also need my support. So in terms of bringing the two parties together, it's something that I have sworn to do, and I will do. That's why maybe your network, if they will come to Sunyani, you know that, oh, for the first time in our political history in Sunyani East, we haven't had any clash. We are conducting our campaign based on issues, what I think I can do for the people of Sunyani.
I'll say that that's a politically correct thing to say, the politically right thing to say, but we'll see how it pans out on the ground. But I just want to find out from you, there are people who have been asked to step aside in other constituencies. So there are some people who are already holding the fort to continue to do that work. Why do you think the party has allowed somebody like you to contend with a sitting MP? Are they being biased in your favor?
The party is not being biased in my favor, but the simple truth is that I've toiled for the party. I've worked for the party for all these years. And it would have been travesty of justice if I had been taken out of this race. Because a lot of the people down here are also looking up to me as to whether, when I filed my nomination, a lot of people were sitting and then watching whether I was going to be disqualified. Thankfully, the party saw that all the things that I provided were within the scale that they had set, and I was then qualified. So I was not given any favor.
For those, some people, one of the stories we did before we came to you was that people are being suspended for invoking cases. And the problem there is that their candidates were not allowed to contest. The party has suspended them. What do you say to that?
Yes, I know it is not easy when you are the person that you support is suspended. It's not easy. I've gone around. Definitely the supporters will be aggrieved. But I think we live in a democracy that when you go and you are asked to step aside, or you are not even asked to contest and you are asked to go back, you just have to go back, look into the future. Maybe the next time that you come back to contest, you may be qualified. So I'll be advising those who be invoking cases. I share their plight. I share their pain. I share their concerns. But it's been done. And the only way out is that we should just hold on. Let us go through this process. But I also advise the leadership of the party to try to heal wounds. Suspension, we can do it. That's the first thing. But aside from suspension, there's the need to engage such individuals to bring them on board, because we need all of them. Come December 2020, we need all of them.
Talking about healing of wounds and engaging, did you engage with the current MP on your plans? And what did he say?
I did not do that.
Okay. Don't you think it would have been good, since you are looking to push unity in the constituency, to engage him and say, at least you have done this for 12 years. Let me come in and try and deal with this. I mean, is this something that crossed your mind, at least?
In all honesty, I know that my senior brother, who is also a member of the band, being the MP for the constituency, I knew that he was going to contest. And there was no way I could have spoken to him to say he should not contest. And I also made my mind to contest. So the only thing is that I decided to contest him, but not to antagonize him. And by contention, there's the need to engage such individuals to bring them on board, because we need all of them. Come December 2020, we need all of them.
Talking about healing of wounds and engaging, did you engage with the current MP on your plans? And what did he say?
I did not do that.
Okay. Don't you think it would have been good, since you are looking to push unity in the constituency, to engage him and say, at least you have done this for 12 years. Let me come in and try and deal with this. I mean, is this something that crossed your mind, at least?
In all honesty, I know that my senior brother, who is also a member of the band, being the MP for the constituency, I knew that he was going to contest. And there was no way I could have spoken to him to say he should not contest. And I also made my mind to contest. So the only thing is that I decided to contest him, but not to antagonize him. And by contesting him, showing the respect that he deserves, but I'll campaign to unseat him. And that's what I've been doing.
I see. I'm going to give you a few, I'm asking if you live in the constituency, the Sunyani East constituency. I want you to send me a message. So far, I don't know if I've lost some of your message, but this one only says that he is the reason I will campaign for NPP in Sunyani East. Lawyer Twayeboa is my sure bet for Sunyani East. You don't add your name. You don't add your name. If you can add your name, and if you live in this constituency, we're wrapping up with the conversation. I just really want to hear from you. But Mr. Twayeboa, I just want you to just scrutinize the stewardship of the current member of parliament. What do you think is the one thing he did wrong that you want to correct?
Unfortunately, I'm not good at assessment. I say so because he's been an MP for 12 years. I'm now yet to be an MP.
That's all the more. That's the more reason why you should be able to. That's the more reason why you should be able to assess.
Yes, that's what I said. Unfortunately, I'm not able to assess. But the key thing that I've been looking at is about the unity of the party, because after 2016, when we had the primaries, and one of the losing candidates went to court, and the sitting MP won the case and was declared winner of that constituency elections. A lot of the people within the constituency decided to sit back for whatever reasons. But I think the sitting MP, in his quest to bring everyone on board, failed to do so. So that's perhaps one thing that I can say about him. In terms of his performance in Parliament, I will not say he's not done his part. He's our MP. He's the chief whip. But I've always been telling the delegates that if you live in, for example, Kaswa, and you go to Kaswa market for 12, 5, or 20 years, and you've not stepped at Makola, you'll be thinking that Kaswa market is the biggest market. When you go to Makola, you know that the biggest of all is there. So definitely, he's done his part. I'm also coming with that kind of energy. And I know that with the support of the grassroots and the chiefs and people of the Sunyani East, I also do my part. After all, Mr. Mr. did his part. He left the scene. He did 12 years. The current MP has done 12 years. He's done his part. I think it's time for me to also step in and do my part.
All right. So I will just leave you to give, speak to the constituents or the people within the constituency. Convince them in like 30 seconds to vote for you.
All right. Thank you very much. The people of Sunyani, you are a bigger constituency. I've come in to represent you. I've come in with a new hope. And this hope is not only my hope, it is your hope. It's a collective hope. And those who are going to vote on Saturday, we are representing the people at the various electoral areas. Listen to them. Ask them the person that they think should be given the money to lead them in 2020. If you come to a conclusion that I'm the one that they want you to elect, please kindly elect me. And I know that's the true situation on the ground. What I need on Sunday is peace and love. Whoever wins, the party has won. Whoever loses must also support the winning candidate.
Okay, that will be it. But I'll just read for you some of the messages that have come in before we call it a wrap. This message is from Joseph Bay Owusu. I hope I got it right. He says, he is the reason I am a young lawyer today through his mentorship. Good on you. You got some good messages coming your way, Mr. Twayeboa. Good evening. He says, I am Sir Mike, currently in Sunyani Area 4. We need change, and I am supporting Lawyer Tia to win the primaries. We don't even have an AstroTurf. Okay, I didn't hear AstroTurf as part of his plan anyway, but well, I guess just so this works for you. He's talking about AstroTurf. This message says, ex-staff of the various savings and loans. Okay, we're not doing various savings and loans at the moment. I wish to have been at Sunyani East. All the same, lawyer, we dare your back. This is a message coming from Maxwell. And this one says, Tua Yeboah is the captain in the boat of the ship, shall surely sail through successfully. Success awaiting come Saturday and is going to be massive. Okay, my final one. Okay, final one, because the messages now keep coming in, but we've run out of the time meant for this particular interview. It says, great having such an intelligent and astute counsel on your show. We, the youth in Sunyani, are full of support. Tua Yeboah is the next MP in Sunyani East constituency, Bantama Aprekutufo, a.k.a. Tarzan. Thank you for sending in those messages. So those are some of the messages coming from the constituency. And, well, so far I haven't seen the others, you know, the others that I usually get for those who come on the show. So thank you very much for your time. Unless you have any final words on the messages we've received so far, we'll call it a day for now.
Let me also thank you for having me on this great platform of yours. You've done a great job, and I know that this is a starting point. Come December or January, you meet me in Parliament, and I'll come back to your show and we'll talk again.
We wish you all the very best. We wish you all the very best. So that is Alfred Tua Yeboah. He is Member of Parliament aspirant for the NPP, at least at the primary level, Sunyani East. He is contending with the current Member of Parliament who has been holding the fort for the past 12 years. So if you live there and you think that his plans appeal to you, by all means, you know what to do. We'll be here over the weekend to bring you all of that primaries, everything that has to do with the primaries, so you want to stay tuned to us. In the meantime, though, the Bono Regional Chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Kwame Bafo, says the opposition NDC is hiding behind the shadows of the bloated and defective register, as they call it, to rig the 2020 elections. According to him, that explains their inconsistent position since 2016 and recent continuous resistance to the compilation of a new voters register.
With all the Bono regional executives of the New Patriotic Party at the press conference in Sunyani, Kwame Bafo, the regional chairman, said all the arguments by the NDC against the compilation of the new voters register, including the exclusion of birth certificate and existing voters ID and inclusion of the National Identification Authority card, is defective.
In 2012, while the NDC was in power, they passed the National Identity Register Regulation, LI 2111, which provided that the Ghana card will be the only identity card required in any transaction where identity must be established or proved. So why the sudden U-turn? NDC also makes the argument that the National Identification Authority intentionally did not register persons in its stronghold. Before the NIA registration commenced, the General Secretary of the NDC, in a press statement, directed all NDC members not to partake in the NIA registration exercise. For this reason, the MPP and the NIA cannot be blamed for their incompetence and non-Ghanaian attitude of the NDC. He also said the lamentations of the NDC and their opposition to a new register suggest a sinister motive. The General Secretary for the NDC, Asiedun Katia, was speaking on JoyNews on the 7th day of May 2016, noted clearly that all political parties, including his, must accept responsibility for the bloated voters register and stop blaming the Electoral Commission. This is an admission clearly made by the largest opposition party that the voter register as of 2016 was bloated. It is important to appreciate that a bloated voters register on its own does not produce a fraudulent election result. It is, however, the ability of criminal elements to weaponize the voters register by transferring the fake names or phantom registrant to actual vote that makes for a stolen election. He called on civil society groups to condemn Asiedun Katia for his alleged remarks in Kintampo that a new register would deny foreigners in Ghana the chance to vote, adding it could lead to chaos. The General Secretary of the NDC was speaking to the chiefs and people of the Mo community in the Kintampo municipality noted that the attempt to compile a new voter register is an attempt to deny foreign nationals from voting in the upcoming general election. This statement by Asiedun Katia is a clear admission that the current voter register contains names of foreigners. Such a statement by the General Secretary is a non-Ghanaian attitude, and I therefore call upon all civil society organizations to condemn such remarks, because it has the tendency of plunging the country into chaos if it is the view of the NDC that foreigners must be allowed to vote in this country.
For Joy News, Precious Semevo, Sunyani.
The Electoral Commission says it has no plans for Ghanaians stranded abroad as it prepares to begin the voter registration exercise on June 30. The Commission's decision to go ahead with the compilation of a new electoral roll has generated controversy, with the NDC vehemently opposed. The opposition party argues that many will be disenfranchised as a result. Because of the closure of the borders due to COVID-19, many Ghanaians are also stranded abroad. But Director of Electoral Services, Dr. Sribo Kwaku, says the EC has no decision on that.
Like I said, we don't know when the borders will open, but this exercise is going to continue to the last person who will make himself available to be registered. We are going to use not less than 38 days. So if the people will come to Ghana within the 38 days, then they'll be covered. Other than that, the Commission will have to take a decision.
So as it stands now, we don't know what will happen if the borders are not open and the 38 days expires, for instance. So there's no plan for them. If you are locked out of the country as we speak, you don't know what will happen to them during the registration exercise. You know the borders are closed. So they cannot also go out. We don't have control over that. But whoever is in the country will cover the person. Okay. But we cannot go out because the border is closed.
He has also been speaking on the EC's next line of action should the mass registration be affected in any way.
I pray that everything goes on. I don't wish that we'll go for any plan B. But I think we have laid down the plan B some time ago, that if it happens that we cannot do the mass registration, then the plan B will be to validate the current register and also go for new limited registration. And in each case, still there will be this human contact. So the plan B will not remove the possibility of human contact. So I think these are the only possible way we can use the old register, but it will still come back to the square one. Everybody will have to go to the polling station.
Question is, passport is acquired by the highest bidder. Why do you trust it? He's asking why you cannot allow them to use their birth certificate, which grants them the rights of citizenship.
I don't have the evidence that the highest bidder gets passport, because I got my passport without paying. It was a normal procedure. You buy the form, you go through, and this time it has even been made simpler than it should be. I don't have any information that people have to pay higher money before they get a passport. I'm not aware of that. So you don't know? The issue about the Ghana card, our voter ID card, that's I've said that is an issue that is being handled by the Supreme Court. And I've said that when the Supreme Court comes out with a verdict, the Commission is law-abiding and will go by it. If it is we should go do A or B, we will go by it. So that will let's wait for. It's only 23rd. The judgment will come, or whatever the Supreme Court will decide, we will easily implement it.
Okay, so what you're saying is you've never heard that foreigners are holding Ghanaian passports?
As for that, there are rumors, and it cut across all cards in Ghana. With the NIA card, we had it. Voter ID card, we had it. So the birth certificate, we had it. So any form of card, we will hear people alleging that people have paid for it and foreigners are holding them.
Dr. Sribo there speaking to MFA Apau on the Beyond the Lockdown yesterday. This is still the pause, so we'll take a very quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. More than 200 villages along Ghana's coastline rely on fisheries as their primary source of income. However, Ghana's small pelagic fishery, crucial for food security and livelihoods, is on the brink of a collapse following decades of overexploitation. The illegal practice of, quote, cycle fishing, the transshipment of fish at sea from industrial trawlers to local canoes, has had a particularly destructive impact on Ghana's small pelagic fisheries. JoyNews' Richard Kojo Nyako, as you saw in that promo, went undercover for several weeks in some of these vessels to capture the illegal fishing businesses that are said to have been suspended. Here is the first episode of a two-part series of the documentary titled Circle, when the last fish is caught.
Meet 38-year-old Nana Kweja. His ancestry straddles many generations of fishermen.
I'm a native of Abanzi, born and bred here, and throughout my life I have stayed here. I was born into a family whose business is fishing. I saw my grandfather doing fishing with my father, and my father also passing it on. So we had a chance to enroll at the basic school and continue schooling. So that's the difference between myself and my father. But both of us are fishermen, except that I went to school. So I am an educated fisherman.
Fishing has been a reliable source of livelihood for Kweja and his family, but that situation is changing rapidly as the tides and waves that keep the canoes at this landing beach afloat.
The scientific and technical working group has made us to understand that cycle, as it is being practiced now, is the most destructive form of IUU. And that is what is actually driving the collapse of the industry. An analysis of a slab of cycle by the Department of Fisheries and Aquatic Sciences, University of Cape Coast, revealed that over 90% of the catch is juvenile. Now, if you are catching juvenile fish in that quantity, then it means you are hindering the reproductive potential of the resource. If you are catching juvenile fish in that quantity, then where lies the potential of the resource to reproduce? So if you close the sea to allow for reproduction, but then cycle business takes all the juvenile fish out of the sea, it renders that measure ineffective and useless. That is why we are worried that the regulator and the ministry will leave activities of cycle, which is driving the industry down, and rather be busily engaging themselves with measures which are ineffective in the midst of this cycle business. And I think somebody should be bold to call the minister to order.
The cycle business, according to the Environmental Justice Foundation, an NGO that has its focus in fishing, dates back to the 1970s when a Japanese fisherman used the term saiti to describe the bad or rubbish fish that their trawlers discarded. But local artisanal fishers here in Ghana, who said the catch was of value, insisted it was saiko, meaning good or useful fish. Subsequently, it developed into an informal trading system where unwanted fish caught by industrial vessels was exchanged at sea for goods such as oranges and water. The practice is prohibited under Ghana's fisheries laws and attract fines of between $100,000 and $2 million, with a minimum fine increasing to $1 million where juvenile fish is involved or prohibited fishing gear is used.
In 1996, when we hit the peak of small pelagics, we landed 130,000 metric tons, right? So cycle is taking 110 out of the 130 historical maximum. So look at the quantum of fish that we are losing to cycle. And the small pelagics they are catching when you examine the fish tablets. So if you are selling tablets of fish containing 90% juveniles, then you are not fishing in offshore waters, you are fishing in inshore waters.
Now that's a very disturbing development. Richard Kojo-Nyako is producer of that documentary. He joins me on Zoom. Hello, Richard.
Hi, Gifty.
Some good work you've done there, I must say. But explain to us, I mean, why this is bad in the first place. Okay, so take us through the basics.
Well, so in fishing, we have the artisanal fishermen, we have the trawlers. Mostly they involve the vessels, the bigger vessels. And so the canoes have over the years been suffering. And then you know that the Ministry of Fisheries sometime last year instituted the close season, which went back and forth. I mean, the fishermen even fought over it. And finally, they had to even agree for that close season to come into force. Then there has been some research by the scientists from both Ghana and outside Ghana, I mean, saying that this illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing practices are disturbing the fisheries resource, especially the small fish you see there, the small pelagics. And so they said that in the year 2020 or thereabouts, if we don't take care, the fishery resources would be depleted. And very soon, if you go to the market, you will not have any fish to buy. And so you see the small fishes, I mean, in the insets over there, that is what these people catch. So they are not expected to catch this kind of fish. They have an area they should be trawling or they should be fishing. These areas are reserved specifically for the canoe fish. So they use the prescribed nets and then other legal methods in order for them to catch them. But these are fingerlings. They have not grown into the bigger size fishes that we would all want to see on our food. But this is what they are catching with a small nets. And these small nets, by the way, they are illegal because they have the mesh nets that are there, and then they are not supposed to use these nets for the fishing activities. So it went back and forth, and then they came together and said that, well, they have suspended these activities that are ongoing. So we decided that, well, let's go undercover and see and verify whether indeed what they told the entire nation is true or not. And this is the result that we find in this documentary.
Tell us about the syndicates that are working, or the syndicates behind this illegal practice, in terms of what you found.
Well, so it's a pretty dangerous adventure. It involves some big wigs in the country. Most of them are politicians. They are behind some of these bigger vessels and the others. So they have also put on board the observers. Observers, most of them are graduates, but because they do not have any job to do, they put them on these vessels. Their job is basically to find out whether this is really happening on the sea. When they put them on these vessels, when they see all of these things, they bring their report to the commission, the Fisheries Commission, on this report that these people have risked their lives, and then when they are gone to sea, to bring back to them. They don't exact any action. And when they find that you are too nosy about, or you are too truthful about whatever you found while at sea, then it means that they are not going to employ your services again. And then we also know that one person has got missing, and we do not know the whereabouts of that particular observer that was put on board. And so it becomes very complicated. Who to crack the whip is really the problem. And it's an infringement on the LI that says that these shipments are illegal. And so that is really the syndicate that is out there. Very, very powerful people. And this one you see on board is just a small portion of what is really happening. If you see the amount of fish that are thrown using the shovels and the others, they carry them, they put them in containers, and then they throw them back. The fish are dead. They are not supposed to catch them anyway, but they have caught them. What they do is that they select what they need, and then they also select some parts that fishermen from Mumford, Apam, Elmina, and other parts of the Western region, they mix them on sea, and then they transfer these fish to them. And that is what they call, if you go to Elmina, if you go to Apam, if you go to Mumford, they call them cycle. So this is the end result of what is happening on sea. So very soon, if we don't take care, all these activities the resultant effect is that the fishermen will spend huge amounts of money. They will buy premix. They will virtually come home with an empty net. And that is the result. So an urgent action ought to be implemented in order to halt this practice. Otherwise, we are all in it. And over 200 communities that are dotted along the coastal belt of the country will stand to suffer, because that is their only livelihood. They depend on the sea for their food, to take care of their children. And it's been an age-old occupation for them. And so that is what they do. Thankfully, these days, some of their children do go to school, but majority of them, that is where they get everything they get from.
Richard, so in the full documentary, what should we expect?
Well, we should expect that we will see more of the activities these vessels engage in, even though they tell us that these activities have been suspended. So it had to take someone to go and prove to them that indeed these activities are still ongoing, and then it has not been stopped as they come to tell us, because they know that on their high seas, no one would dare go there. But we decided that, well, we have to point it out to them that indeed these are the footages that we have. We've gone there, we know what's happening there, and then we want the policymakers, government, to really ensure that these things are stopped, because we have the Fisheries Commission, we have the Ministry of Aquaculture or Fisheries. They have to really rally around and then ensure that these practices are stopped.
Let me wrap up with your personal experience. I mean, I don't expect you to divulge any information that will jeopardize any future plans of such investigations, etc. But tell us, share with us the part of the information you can about your experience doing this. Hi, Richard.
Well, hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
So a lot of decisions had to be made in order to, before I even embarked on this one, I was scared. I didn't know whether, what about if I am caught forming, if what will happen to me, because on the high seas, even though you know how to swim, how would you swim from that part if you are, excuse me to say, if you are thrown into the sea?
And I'm seeing the waves right now from beneath the vessel, and it's not small waves at all.
Exactly. So I mean, a lot had to go into it, and finally I decided that, well, we need a solution to this one, because it's a problem that affects all of us. And eventually, if we don't get any solution, it will affect the entire nation. So that is why I had to take that decision to embark on this perilous journey.
Well done. And for those who are the fisher folk in the area, what sort of response have you had so far, though?
Well, it's their cry. They've been crying for a very long time, but some of them, it's divided though, because some of them are benefiting. Yeah. Some are, we call the psycho people, other places. They meet these big vessels on the sea, and then they sell it to them at peanuts, and so it's something they get a lot of money from. But there are the other artisanal canoe and fishermen who spend thousands of Ghana cedis buying premixed fuel. They go, they tell their families that they are going and they will be back with some catch. They come and sometimes they don't even get anything. So what happens to all that he has spent? And if care is not taken, it will be a national security problem, because that is the only thing they know as far as their dependence or their livelihood is concerned.
Richard, thank you so much. So this documentary is airing tonight at 8:30 p.m. here on the JoyNews channel, right? Okay, I wanted him to help me with that, but it's certainly showing tonight at 8:30 p.m. on your JoyNews channel. You want to follow that conversation.
Ghana's fisheries resources keep depleting at an alarming rate, affecting food security and the livelihoods of some fisherfolk.
The fish they are throwing back into the sea, they are dead.
Illegal fishing over many decades has led to the overexploitation of the small pelagic fishes by trawlers.
They themselves, they knew that what they are doing is offense, or it's not the right thing they're supposed to do.
What would we do when the last fish is caught? JoyNews' Richard Kojunyako goes undercover on the high seas and returns with exclusive footage of trawlers engaged in illegal transshipment of fish. Psycho, when the last fish is caught.
8:30 p.m. tonight, 6:30 tomorrow. You want to make a date for that, a very revealing documentary by Richard Kojunyako.